We Heal Nations, where we discuss healing through finding out the truth and accepting it, loving and celebrating everyone and everything that we do, regardless how small or how big. Peace and love. Join me for enlightenment. To call into Daniel's News Network, the number one.
Well,
Well,
I think we're back. We're back. Welcome back another week of beautiful, uplifting information and messages coming through from the divine ancestors and other beings that are around us. Like, by now everybody's aware of what's going on. I'm hopeful. We're entering a new era, as last program we spoke about. And just in case many of you are not at that same level, today I'm going to continue to revisit certain information that I spoke about in the past. And before we go on, I just want to say thank you. Much gratitude to be here, first of all, from the to the divine creator, from all the people who's been involved with me to this point in this upliftment of spirit and of being, having these experiences. I want to thank everybody who's been involved in my life so far, whether it may seem at the time that it was difficult or trying or you know angered or whatever. I'm at the point where all is good, and all of it was essentially to bring me to this point of understanding who I am and why we're all here, to bring in this new era of evolution and revelations, because we're finding out things that was hidden from us, right? So it's a great time to be alive, and I'm so grateful for it. So tonight, there's no specific, like say, topic other than upliftment. All right, because these messages are I'm being guided each time. Like earlier today, there was a situation with someone. Although I was on the same path in coming to talk about these things, to remind people of who they are. They're not a piece of paper, or they're not an instrument. And the situation that's going on around the world, that may seem that the government has the power, they do not. So you need to learn what you need to do as a living being having an experience on earth, and what your role is. You need to find out what your role really is at this point, whether you're a mother or even a teenager, because or a little being, a little, like my granddaughter, because they're here as ancients returning with a higher vibration already. You know, when you look and listen to these little beings, I have to say, I don't want to say child or children, because my understanding of the laws and the corporation system, I'm getting used to not using terms like kids, children, child, because again, everything is a spell. So by now, if you're not aware of this, I would just want to ask you to stop calling your offspring or your heirs kids or child. They're really divine beings returning to bring in this new era to help with it. They're probably more ancient than you, you know, and many may recognize it by the things that they're doing already at a year old, or how their teeth is coming in so fast, or some of them born with practically all their teeth almost. They're walking much faster than most kids. Oh, there, I said it. You see that habit? They're walking and doing things much faster than other beings at their level, right? So we have to be conscious of the words of our spellings, right? Because they're all spells. So this is why it is called We Heal Nations. And I'm not perfect as a human. but I'm coming from a perfect source, the creation of all our souls, right? So we all are. So the experience here is to bring us back to that point and to let us be reminded that we are one, and that if you want something for yourself, you should also see that it is for the person that is next to you or in front of you, behind you, whatever. It should be that if I don't want to have pain, I don't want anyone to have pain. Although, as an empath, I do feel other people's pain. And all week, I'm telling you, my body, I was feeling it. I was feeling teary. I know things are happening. So, um, and I wasn't aware what all this thing was. And this is why people are often seen as, having problems mentally, but it is not so. We're actually, those are the people who are actually aware more. And we have to break that cycle of feeling that if someone is not thinking like you, something is wrong with them. Like earlier today, I saw where Ye or Kanye was explaining when he said that slavery is a choice. And at the point I saw it, I understood what he meant. Because not everybody's at that level in understanding. I understood what he meant when he said that. We choose every day to go into the system and create contracts with these people. He was referring to his contracts that he signed in terms of how he has to perform, and they have control of everything that he does, right? But it's the same thing. The system is a slave system, right? Um, you really believe that you have to put all your offspring in a system so that you can go to work, right? You go on the job or the job. And if you read Job, if you're a so-called Christian and you read Job, you will understand that's torture, right? And is it really, what is the lesson in that? The lesson is really, if you have abundance, right? Why are you making an agreement with someone that is outside of the scope of that, of what you know to be true, that you are a natural being and you have access to all resources as the birds and the bees and everything else does. So what your job is to find out how you can access it and how to get yourself out of these contracts that are not easily seen and recognized as a contract. A valid contract gives your consent to an agreement. So if you just consent, for example, when there's a calling for a job, and usually in the Caribbean they do that, they make sure that you have nothing, you have nowhere to go for help. Not even the church helps you. There's several churches all over the bloody islands, okay? Just in one little village. If you can count how many churches in one village, and you're not able to solve the problems of everybody there having access to their resources or access to housing, but you can get a church set up in a couple of months. Like, that's something wrong with that. And if you can't see something is wrong with that, then I don't know what else to tell you. Okay? So when I see things like, for example, the recent article of the young lady that was stabbed in St. Vincent, and people who are listening in different parts of the world, this radio program comes out of the Caribbean, so-called, but we're on the land of the Americas. We are Americas. The United States of America definition, I would really have to go over that because it's more than just Northwest hemisphere, okay? So when that is explained, I think more people will get it, that you really are under a lot of spells. So I want to start with this because a good friend of mine that I met during my journey allowed me to borrow her book. And because I'm learning about who I truly am, I was amazed because I, in a sense, I always wanted to know these things, but I didn't know where to go. And I tried before trying to find books in these libraries here in the so-called province of Quebec. And we have to realize when people put their mark in a place, they're going to create what they want, right? So that you are further lost as to where you are, right? So when they put Quebec or United States, the New World, when they say New World, it doesn't mean that it's actually a new world. It means that they're creating their new world. So if there was a world before that, prior to that, you should be curious about that because they're old buildings, way older than the United States of America, older than Egypt, older than on this Western Hemisphere. Whether it be in the area now called Quebec or the areas like Central America, South America, or even mainland so called United States. And I put that in quotations because there's actually three United States created. And again, these are all illusion, right? So there's the United States Corporation registered in Washington, D.C. Went over this before, but I want to make it clear because a lot of people are in their different illusions, right? So to help you guide you out of the dark, you need some little tools, right? So one tool is to understand the United States. Many times when you read, you see things, but you don't understand why. You see the all caps United States, right? And then you see another United States with upper lowercase United States. And then you see the United States of America, right? And then people are aware of the Organization of American States. And that you can research right now. And you'll see all the countries, so-called, that is a part of it. Consider those are all corporations that are under that. So if Canada is a part of the Organization for American States, of American States, that would mean that Canada is a state of the Americas. It would mean that if it's a part of the colony, it's under the 13 colonies, right? 13, 1, 3. They always say 13 is a bad luck, but it isn't. 13 comes to 4, which is a square. When we say stand on your square, all these things are done on purpose. There's a reason for it. It's spelling. It's, to capture, to manipulate, to conceal. There's so many different words I can use here. But tonight, ladies and gentlemen, I want to focus on trying to get some more light into the darkness of our world. And have you think, I have one question. Everybody's talking about the dark ages, and I remember when I was in school, it was, oh, the dark ages, But in fact, we came into a dark age when these people created that because it was not truth. It was all deception. And deception is darkness, isn't it? That's a question and a statement at the same time. But to my understanding, I would ask it now. Would you consider deception and corruption dark? The dark ages, right? So, in fact, this new era would be bringing you into a lighter age of truths, age of freedom, age of sovereignty, age of love, age of peace. But it's definitely over with the darkness because too many people are realizing that it's not just their neighbor that's being attacked. When they come after your children for whatever reason, somebody reports that there's been noise, there's abuse or whatever. And there are abuse in the neighborhoods. They are. But a lot of times, because they put this deceitful, stuff on there, and as soon as now anybody mention any kind of abuse, anybody can be targeted. Anyone. Even if you're not guilty or you don't even know the person. And then most of the time now when the police come and they say, oh, we have a report, and then you ask them a report, like, who reported? Oh, that's confidential. How can it be confidential if somebody's reporting something about you? That's the claim, right? So, again, people have to understand it has nothing to do with anybody committing harm to anyone. It's about finances. It's about the fact that the government no longer have access to those instruments because of that document I read from the Pope, right? Final judgment. And maybe I would have to go over that again. But the final judgment was what he relieved all these courts and all these other uh, corrupt entities from their duties because they were in fact enslaving, although he started it, enslaving the people on the land, right? So um, many of the police are unaware because their training was not to see that you're protected. Their training was to protect their corporation. Their training was to, in fact, protect their job, right? They often say to you, "Oh, I'm doing this for my protection." They're talking about themselves. They're never saying that, in order to protect you, I'm asking you some questions. No, they grab you right away and start putting handcuffs on you and say, "We don't know if you're carrying. We don't know if you're this. We don't know any, but we don't know you either. You show up in a uniform. How am I so 100% certain that you are doing a job that is legit?" Anybody could wear a uniform and guns, right? They have their specific people that they're allowed with guns, even though we are the ones who need the protection, but they're claiming they need to be protected. Now, if anybody could show me any case where people were involved, that they were the ones who actually attacked the police or anybody without. And many of these stories that you hear with these shootings, the truth is coming out about that. It was designed. It was designed by these so-called three-letter agencies, and then after the conspiracy so-called, which we know a conspiracy is when people find truths, but they want to brush it off and say, "Oh, it's just a conspiracy." But anyway, the so-called 9/11 and all of that created other aspects for them to say, "Oh, you can't have this when you're traveling. We have to search you completely." But if we knew who we were, we couldn't have accepted that. So we were properly programmed to believing that they had our best interest at heart. So before I continue, I want to read this, right? So my friend had this book. It's called A Mayan Oracle, right? And who is that by? Spilbury and Miner. Okay. So she gave it to me to read. Not, she didn't give it to me. She said, "Listen, because of what you're doing, I thought you'd be interested in reading it." And for a while, I did read it. I put it down and just got so busy with other stuff. But today, I went to pick it up. It also has oracle cards. And as I was shoveling it, 2 cards fell out. So I said, let me check out the meaning of those cards. So one card is called the Caban, right? And the book has the information on the Caban. And it's pronounced Caban, yes. So it's spelled Caban, right? And it says common Mayan usage, the earth force, incense, right? Qualities, and it's centeredness, synergy, synchronicity, earth force, galactic alignment, earth keeper, fluid, world renaissance, clue, tracking, crystal healing, shield. Okay, this is all what it represents, right? The qualities of it. Then it has symbol, rainbow, white lion, whale. And then it has number. The number is 17, right? And it has the color is fuchsia. Herbs is Irish moss and squavine. Okay, I've never heard of that. And then flowers is fuchsia gladiolus, ginger, cosmos, peony, and then flower essence, corn, grounding, spiritual relationship to the earth. Okay? And then his scent is nag, chapa, um, narcissus. Okay? And the stones, dark pink, tourmaline, channeling crystal, pink ruby, morganite, and then the element is earth. Direction is east. And then it says shadow wisdom, focusing on past and future, not being in the present moment, over interpreting signs, symbols, dreams, and visions, jumping to conclusions, non-identification with earthly existence, shadow transformation, be centered in the present moment, observe without drawing conclusions, allow the larger pattern to emerge, remember your choice to come to earth in this unique time of transformation. Okay, so these are all of the things. So wisdom, okay, harmonic wisdom tone, mudra, fingers and thumbs of both hands touching to form a triangle, right? So that's that symbol that people see a lot. Shape moving from the lower chakra to the crown above the head, then to the heart chakra. Repeat 3 times. And there's a meditation. Gift of sacred Eunice Mendy, eye of the center, sacred loop of the Oran Horus, circle of fifths, be completed in me. So, it was very interesting when I picked that up and I read it. And then there's an affirmation: I am aligned with my center, earth force aligned with cosmic force. Okay, so, and it has more information like the magical child, right? I am Kaban, sacred synchronization, divine alignment of planetary and cosmic force, neither past nor future. I am the Eunice Mondai, earthed in the place of perfect centeredness in the eternal present moment. We talk about being in the present moment. Like, people are all over the place these days because of what's going on. And it is important to feel balanced, or to be balanced, and to center yourself. Right? So from this place, I offer you direct access to all knowledge, all time, all abilities. As above, so below. Galactic consciousness is transmitted through the awakened eyes in your feet, interwoven into the myriad possibilities of the radiant fields of light. So you have to imagine that, when you're speaking these words, you imagine that this radiant fields of light is bringing you all this knowledge of what you need for this moment, right? Receive now the truth you desire, right? I am Kaban. Keep your heart and mind open and tuned. Keys and strings awaiting in devotion. The loving touch of the true virtuoso in effortless mastery will be created. Such ecstatic harmonies of improvised perfection as to send chills of rapture up the spine of the creation. Find freedom from what has been. Let your edges, in other words, this is the time to set everything and let it go. Get your freedom. Let everything go, right? Let your edges expand to accommodate, right, my unexpected and unrehearsed movement in the clear waters of your receptive mind, unclouded with conceptions, there will my sparkling spontaneity dance. So that was for Caban, right? Um, we, at this point in time, really need to find a way to let go. I know it's difficult. Let go the pain, the hurt. And as I'm saying this, again, I'm the memory of that photo of the young lady that left two children after being her life being taken by her ex because he's not able to let go. Many of us are struggling with this concept or this matrix of illusions of what we have and what belongs to us, and who is responsible and so forth. We need to let it all go and heal. And a lot of the times, because we're in this cloud of um, perceived truths, we can't see the light. We can't see what we actually need to do, that the solutions are within and not without. It's not without. It's not outside of you. And that the whole community should be a part of that as well. Because if we notice, for example, that same story, apparently there was a fire. Now, I would be connecting dots right there. If there was a fire, whatever is going on, I'm not making assumptions. There are questions that could be asked. Investigators of the fire, investigators of the police investigation unit. If there was troubles before, she had problems before, yes, with this individual. Everybody seems to think that because it is affecting that person, is not affecting them. But no, it's all a part of the same community. This could happen to you and others. If it happened to her, it's really happening to you because it's affecting the ecosystem of your community. So how we look at things, my experience is your experience. This is why I'm sharing. Because if I'm learning something that, could happen to anybody, and I share it, it helps for the rest of the beings to understand and how to get out of that. We seem to be trapped in the world of you have to go this specific doctor, we have to go. But we have traditions prior to all of this that help. The way we lived was healing already. We lived peaceful, we lived sharing, we lived communing, helping each other. So that didn't bring on those problems because the community would have seen that there's an issue. I remember growing up, and I spoke about this before, which was very rare in my time. But if someone raped or was raped, the community usually knew the suspect. And they would get that suspect themselves and take care of it. Now, it wasn't always the right way they took care of it. But what I'm saying is, and you have a responsibility, then it has to be a community thing. When we wait for outside, when I say outside, I mean like if somebody is a representative of a community, say I'm in Montreal and my representative lives in Toronto, how is that helpful for me? How is that helpful? So it has to be, it's not those entities that are called government. It's your community. You have to create your community that has access to information that can assist in your given situation. Meaning now the community has to trade each other or share information with each other. Not personal, but information regarding the community and how the community is set up. Now, everybody feels that, well, there are certain constitutional laws, and yeah, but let me tell you something, people. The Constitution for St. Vincent and the Grenadines, for example, is a fraudulent one. It was not created by the people. It's not the people. It is a corporation and their policies. Same with the so-called Constitution of Canada. It's a company, Canada, and it's the same thing. And you have the Black's Law Dictionary that's available online. Okay, they have different editions that are available. Most of the things, again, are online and are downloadable, right? And presently, we are um, under the guide of the continuity of government from FEMA, right? This was created 2001, and I have it in front of me, and I'm going to read some of it. So that could be found online too. You can look that up. Guide to Continuity of Government for State, Local, Tribal, and Territorial Governments. All right? And this was July, 2021. Why did that come out? Obviously, when the shutdown for the so-called COVID thing, that was an emergency. We're still under emergency, folks. So things are not going on as how it was for business because there's too much corruption in the world, right? So the table of contents has the introduction and purpose, principles of co-op, and okay, so it's principle of co-op and COG and ECG. Okay, what it means, the relationships between co-op. I'm just gonna click on that page to go through the definition of all of those. It means continuity of operations. So it's really COOP, right? So it's continuity of operations, right? And it says the principle of these, which is ensures an individual organization can continue to perform its essential functions, provide essential services, and deliver core capabilities during a disruption to routine operations. So the disruption was the COVID pandemic situation. And it says continuity is the foundation on which continuity of government and enduring constitutional government capabilities. Let me just increase that size because it's kind of really, I'm looking on the screen. Okay. And so it says here, continuity planning is simply a good business practice. Performance of the NEFs requires that all governmental departments have a viable continuity capability, like the NEFs at the national level. SLTT government should identify as mission essential those functions that are necessary to lead and sustain their jurisdiction during a catastrophic emergency. So there's an emergency. But remember, they also mention that the community, the whole community, includes tribal, which like those people who are, claim themselves self-govern on the land as their inheritance or their inherited bloodline rights, because we have blood rights and bloodline rights, and the local government, which would be like in the city of Montreal, for example. And there's tribes, there's federal government, there's all these different parts, but the whole community. And in each jurisdiction there are things that has to be addressed that is pertinent to the individual. Now, if you know who you are, and I'm going to go to that and read, I'm going to go to this. I have this common law booklets right in front of me. It says Common Law Handbook for Jurors, Sheriffs, Bailiffs, and Justices. Because I'm telling you, these people don't know the law. A lot of them don't know the law. So I want to read in particular the meaning of words, right? So nation. In American constitutional law, the word state is applied to the several members of the American Union, while the word nation is applied to the whole body of the people embraced within the jurisdiction of the federal government. So, nation is not necessarily that your nationality and that you're free on the land. It's under the federal government. Okay? So I had to read this out because there's a case that established that. Cooley Cons whatever. I don't know if it's they didn't put the full name, but there is a case, you can check that out, right? So, and then it says privilege. When we talk about privileges to be a citizen, etc., right? Do you really want to be a citizen with privileges? Okay, let me read what privilege means. In Black's Law, 4th edition, 1891, is merely an accessory of the debt which it secures and falls with the extinguishment of the debt. So when you say, when they say, oh, you as a citizen you have privileges. A citizen is the ones that's being used to set off the debt of the nation, the federal government. You get me with that? So you're off the land, you're under commercial law or contract law as a nation, and then you have privileges, and it doesn't matter. Like, I know all these people pushing nationality, but do you know what nation is and nationality is? I don't want to be, because you just have a privilege to be a Canadian, for example, and you have no privileges on the land expansion of it. Like, if your bloodline comes on the land all over the Americas, because like my bloodline can be traced back thousands of years, so why am I going to limit myself to being a Vinci or a Canadian per se? I'm not either one of them. I am a woman on the land right now, Northwestern Hemisphere, right? And the Caribbean is part of the Northwestern Hemisphere. So I'm not going to limit myself to have a privilege. Does that make sense? So then it has persons, because I remember I spoke about there's a legal fiction person that is attached to you like a twin, right? So when you were born and you thought you were just going to put in, or your mother thought she was just going to put, your announced that this beautiful child was born. Thank you. And she goes and she feels, well, she didn't go. They came to her at the hospital, actually. She told me that they came to the hospital and asked for the child's name. She didn't go and register that, whatever. She gave them the name Vanessa. That's all, right? So they then took and created a certificate. And usually it was the nurses that did that. However, I know for a fact that the original birth certificate was not like the one that is today, that is in the form of a bond that looks like money. And you all know what I'm talking about, that parrot, right? All looks nice and it's in all caps information, and it really has nothing to do with you. That is just like a note stating that, there's an entity entered. And you could read the whole birth certificate. It used terms that has nothing to do with a child, right? So anyway, so that's what it is. It says secures. When you use terms of privilege, it use secures and falls within the extinguishment of death. That has nothing to do with a person, a living being having a privilege. It has to do with them having an opportunity to get rid of their debt. And you are the person who's going to help them do it, because you attached yourself to the citizenship and you agreed unknowingly, without full disclosure, obviously, right? Okay, so persons in Black's Law, it says, are divided by law into natural and artificial. Let me say that again. Persons are divided by law in natural and artificial. Corporations, okay, that's a person. Corporations, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, it's a legal fiction person. Artificial person. Or bodies politics, right? I gotta look up bodies politic. I didn't look that up, but it should be in here in the same book I'm reading. So, and it says quasi-municipal corporation. So like the city of Montreal is a legal person. So if you get a ticket, right, accusing you of a crime, it's a legal person accusing the living person, but they use your artificial person that they created with the all caps name. So when you're reading things, that's how you dissect it. Are you referring to the right person? Is it the principal person or is it the debt secured person? Which one is it, people? Yes. So let's continue. So bodies, politic, and corporate created for the sole purpose of performing one or more municipal functions. You hear that? That's the person. So one or more municipal functions would be issuing tickets and setting it off and charging you to pay it on top of that. Isn't that lovely? And also the courthouse, any courthouse, right? Because they're not really on the land. They're not operating on the land, are they? Okay. So it says now, there's another phrase that people like to use. We the people. So the meaning, we the people of the United States. And when I say United States, remember I give you the definition of the United States prior, right? In case, for those who are now just tuning in on it, let me get that definition as we're here. So I'm going to open another instrument. Let me see. I think I just downloaded it again on my thing. I have it somewhere else, but just to get it faster, I am going to get it here because it's just faster for me. Let's see. So definition of the United States. And again, right, it says, right, and that's a USC code, by the way. The term United States, as used in the title in a territorial sense, and remember we mentioned about the FEMA thing, territorial, includes, all places and waters, continental or insular, subject to the jurisdiction of the United States, except the Canal Zone. Okay, so that exists. Just in case anybody's going to tell me, why did I get that? That's nonsense. It does exist. You can look it up. The source that I got it, you look up 18 USC Section 5. Okay, that's United States code. And once any country can use this code because it, like I said, the definition says all places and waters, continental or insular. Continental. The whole earth is a continent. It's continental. Subject to this jurisdiction of the United States, except the canal zones. Okay? So look that up. So the reason I'm reading that, because you're going to want to know what we the people is. We the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, establish the justice establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our prosperity, to ordain and establish this Constitution for the United States of America. Okay? So that was the so-called New World Constitution. Still, this has nothing to do with our ancestors. Okay? You get that? Okay. Now let's go on. People, meaning people here in the law, right, are supreme, not the state. The state is not supreme. All right? Waring versus the mayor of Savannah. So that's a case you could check out. Waring, Waring, and it's funny how they use warring because they've been warring over us for a long time, versus the mayor of Savannah. Right? The state cannot diminish rights of people. Right? And there's another case, Hurtado versus California. The state cannot diminish rights of the people. At the revolution, the sovereignty developed on the people, and they are truly the sovereigns of the country. But they are sovereigns without subjects, with none to govern but themselves. Do you want me to repeat that? Which means you have to do your due diligence to learn the truth and govern yourself. It says, right? Let me repeat that whole thing. At the revolution, the sovereignty developed on the people, and they are truly the sovereigns of the country. But they are sovereigns without subject, with none to govern but themselves. Okay? Let's go on. You need to learn the truth so you can govern yourself better instead of living in a matrix. That is a lie, right? The people of this state, as successors of its former sovereign, are entitled to all the rights which formerly belonged to the king by his prerogative, by his prerogative. And that a case you can look at Lansing versus Smith. Okay? So let's do ordain. The meaning of ordain is to enact a constitutional law. Okay? So the people really are ordained to enforce the law, in a sense. King is sovereign ruler, holds the highest executive power, aka the people. Sovereignty itself is, of course, not subject to law. So you, in a sense, are the law. But however, as long as you do not harm anyone, right? If you know who you are, you know what the law is, because there are galactic and universal natural laws, basically. The law of nature says, I'm man, you're man, I'm woman, and that the woman, if you're studying science and all of that, how long what woman found on this earth and a man found on this earth, how could be anything higher than that? How could there be anything higher than that? Okay? So, again, where was I? So, but in our system, while sovereign powers are delegated to the agencies of government, which it's an illusion, sovereignty itself remains with the people, by whom and for whom all government exists and acts. And the law is the definition and limitation of power. There's another case with that. Siekwo versus Hopkins. And that's Yick, space WO, and it's versus Hopkins, right? So these are really important to know going forward, and for you to take your due diligence and check out where you stand. You know, what is your right? What is your right now when there's an emergency system info? There's the FEMA document. You can look through that. There's also the ancestral lands. I spoke about that before. That which gives the indigenous people their rights to govern themselves. I mean, even before they brought out this document, we knew that. But we were bullied and forced to vote, forced to go to church, forced to forget about our true heritage, and forced to believe in something that is not us, forced to accept a history that is not our heritage. It's a story that's created to justify this whole illusion that there's all the separation of people and countries. And we bought it, folks. A lot of us bought it. So don't feel bad. You know, just get some light and do your due diligence, right? How failure to secure property rights impairs the enjoyment of other human rights. So this that I just read is from the indigenous and tribal rights, tribal peoples' rights over ancestral lands. And I always stress the word over, because over means the highest, just like the king and sovereignty, right? And natural resources, right? So if you are natural, organic to the land, you are the land, and you have the highest rights over the land. And if you're still encouraging people to go and vote knowing this, then you're in a violation, and you are also conspiring to commit genocide. You are also a part of the corruption. You are also a part of the liars' crew. false impersonation. You know, when we hear people coming up with all these different programs to revisit the so-called Caribbean Constitution, what is that? What is the Caribbean Constitution? What is the Caribbean, this legal fiction? What is that? Huh? What is that? Why are we going there when there's all these documents that show that you have the rights to your land? Why? Why are you going there? Why? I'm going to read the introduction of the indigenous and tribal people's rights over their ancestral lands and natural resources. Again, because I've done it before. Norms and jurisprudence of the Inter-American Human Rights System. Introduction. Okay, let me just blow that up, because I'm going to have some problems seeing that because of the fact that, okay. So it says here, indigenous and tribal peoples have unique ways of life, and their world view is based on their close relationship with the land. I could say what I'm saying because I do have a close relationship with the land. I'm always in the land, even though I'm living in this place. Indoors, I have my pots. My hands are always in the soil. You know, we have a close relationship. We love nature. We're connected to the universe. We're connected in that way. Our heart beats with it. Okay? We prepare the best healthy foods, although we're forced to accept GMOs and other stuff that poison us, right? The lands I'm gonna change they with we. The lands we traditionally use and occupy are critical to our physical, it says there, but I want to say our physical, cultural, and spiritual vitality. This unique relationship to traditional territory may be expressed in different ways depending on the particular indigenous people involved and its specific circumstances. Now, the land is not just where you were born and grew up, the land is the entire earth, people. That black kemet, kemet means black soil, okay? It's throughout the land, right? It may include traditional use or presence. For example, we use a lot of the herbs and stuff that we grow to heal ourselves. We do a lot of stuff. Maintenance of sacred or ceremonial sites, settlements, or sporadic cultivation, meaning that we can move around and cultivate wherever we want. Okay? Seasonal or nomadic gathering. We can gather anywhere, hunting and fishing. The customary use of natural resources are our elements characterizing indigenous or tribal culture. As the Inter-American Court of Human Rights has pointed out, for indigenous communities, relations to the land are not merely a matter of possession, right, and production, but a material and spiritual element. So even if we're not possessing that particular land, the land is connected to us all the time. So that spiritual side of it, the element. So with all the so-called events in the earth and so forth, it is attached to our spirituality. So what is happening to us on a spiritual level, it affects the earth and vice versa. Okay? Which they must fully enjoy, even to preserve their cultural legacy and transmit it to future generations. So that's the next 7 generations. They need to know this stuff. You need to take them out of the schools and, relearn. Disregard what they've been putting in as programming and teach them the truth. Because they will come and get them and abuse them if you're still allowing them to be citizens and children and child, because that means they're not yours. Or kids, that means they're not yours. Kids is a wild goat. Okay? I'm going to take a break in a few minutes. Let me just finish this paragraph. Okay, to guarantee the right of indigenous peoples to communal property, it is necessary to take into account that the land is closely linked to their oral expressions and traditions. So we did a lot of dance in the soil, bare feet, drumming, all of that. Okay? Their customs and languages, we made sounds, we did whatever to show respect and gratitude for what the land provides us. I'm saying there, shall I say our arts and rituals, our knowledge and practices in connection with nature, culinary arts, the way we cook, the way we do that, yeah. Customary law, so we have certain customary rites of passage and so forth. Dress, philosophy and values. Our committee, it says the committee for the elimination of racial discrimination has also concluded that the indigenous people's territorial rights are unique and encompass a tradition and cultural identification of indigenous peoples with their lands, which has been generally recognized. Okay, so don't feel because they have all this written down they're just supposed to do it. You have to take action and use this information, because they're not going to do it. Once a pirate, always a pirate. So if you're not taking your information and taking your laws and taking them to, putting them on notice and exposing them, you think they're gonna come and say, "Listen, madam, we're charging you for your land, but really it's your land, and we don't have to charge you. We're not supposed to charge you. You can claim it." You think they're gonna come and tell you that? Do you think they're gonna come and tell you that? It's your responsibility, right? So the right to property, pursuant to Article 21 of the American Convention on Human Rights, thus has singular importance for indigenous and peoples because the guarantee of right to territorial property is a fundamental basis for the development of indigenous communities, cultures, spiritual life, integrity, and economic survival. So if you want to continue the way it is and wait for someone else to tell you and use this for you, it's not going to work. You have to say who you are, not what somebody tells you you are. You have to demand that, no, I am not black, I am not colored, I am not Caribbean, I'm not Vincy, I'm not this. I am a divine being, I have an experience on my land as a human. So let's take a break, folks, on that note. I hope you're enjoying the program. I'm coming back with more. Let's have that break now, please. Okay. Yes, we're back. So, prior to tonight's program, which most of the time I do this, I ask for my divine ancestors' presence. I ask for them to take over the program, basically, and to guide me. So, a lot of the issues that's been coming up lately is, the human trafficking and the children. And I was kind of directed, and I did make notes about this before, like a week before. And it's just so funny that issues are happening around that right now. And, how it works is like, you know, you're being monitored, Big Brother. But we didn't believe in that Big Brother. But you're being monitored and you allow it without knowing. Like like I said, when you go to church and you register your name for this, everything you put in your name and you whatever, the name. You say it's your name, but it's not you. Right? So documents are being created each time. You're being set up in a filing system, and they have their categories of stuff. This is how children get labeled. so-called children, your heirs get labeled as troublemaker or need remedial work. And non-EDA children don't need any of that stuff. Get real. Now, you're put into situation where it appears you're having these issues. Like the school system is rotten. If it's not functioning, if it doesn't have proper environment, whatever, of course there's going to be reactions. You know, the your little angels are going to react to it because it doesn't feel comfortable. It does not feel right. It is not a place for actual learning. It's a place for being monitored. It's a place to being controlled. It's a place for creating instruments to continue and continue generation after generation. So when you start seeing these things, and not everybody sees it, so I'm not blaming anybody for not seeing it, like parents, whatever. And I could testify that I actually saved my son when I was being blasted and say, oh, you're not stable. And I was feeling these things. I didn't know exactly what it was. I was feeling something was wrong. So when I brought my son to St. Vincent and the Grenadines, the island, Uruguay, I was lambasted. Oh, she's not married and she's all over with this child and she's this and she's that. But I literally took him out from this system because I saw they were creating all these files. I didn't know what it was, but I knew the things they were claiming my son wasn't. You know, they wanted to put him on medication very young because that's another instrument to create a file, right? And to get funds under the trust system, right? And, you know, he's not this, he's not picking up. But then when I took him to a tutor, the tutor tells me he's so advanced, there's nothing wrong with him, but there's something more going on here. So I started to investigate. Now, some of the schools would have, like back then, I don't know if they still do it. It seems like the most important thing was the careers of the principal and the teachers and the staff, whatever. So they had their own system of who works with whom and whatever and how it worked. And they had all these labelings for all these. I'm like, why are you labeling these children like that? And the situation is, it is not age appropriate. It is not student appropriate or learning appropriate. And from what I was learning, how boys learn differently from girls, right? From my own interactions, because I was also a camp counselor, and most of the time they would end up sending me the boys because I found a way to deal with boys because they really just wanted to express themselves, whether it's through art, music, running. They had a lot of energy. Energy is what we're made of. We are energy. And when they start labeling our children saying they need medication because those teachers cannot handle their energy, I don't know, it does not go with the curriculum. So this is why they started to say they have ADD and all these different things, because now they're creating a file to create a monetary system so that they could have them go into a remedial class, which created one like monetary means. Then they want to bring in somebody to control their behavior. Then they want to put you. So I left that garbage. I brought him to the Caribbean. Fortunately for me, and I give thanks to my aunts and uncles who are educators. And since then, the educational system in the islands has changed to copy what's going on up here. So at the time, I saved my son. When I look back, I saved him for that time. I don't know what they would have done because I know a lot of children got medicated and labeled and are addicted to drugs. And my son used to tell me that, you know, people used to come around there and try to offer them things, you know, and when you learn all about these, you know, different three-letter organizations that do these kind of things to entrap and create files again, you know, you wonder, like, how could we trust this system at this point? Why would I want to send my grandchildren to school? Yeah, mind you, my son is doing that, but they said not they, you know, the mother research them and so forth. But they have an issue with me because when they come, I teach them stuff. And then my grandson would come back and say, Grandma, they said this and this. And I laugh a lot because he says, this is confusing. I said, I know it is. It isn't, isn't it? They're teaching you, they're programming you one way, and I'm telling you the truth. So I said, you know what? You need to figure it out. If you know, but because they're so programmed with the video games and so forth, they're different from when we were younger who wanted to learn and be imaginative and read books and stories and stuff like that. They're attached to the video games. But I keep trying to find ways to get him interested. And I'm not going to give up on that. But he is interested. He is. It's just that they're confusing the damn children. Excuse my language. I'm getting all emotional about it. But they're confusing them. You have to stop telling the lies by this point. Because it's all over the place. And then, I'm not going to stop telling him the truth. I'm not. I'm not going to cooperate with a fraudulent system. I'm not. I'm just not going to cooperate. That's not why I'm here. I'm here to tell the truth and nothing but. So, yes, so then they get them into the foster care, or they come up with some reason to. There's some procedure. And I recently learned that, when they're going after the fathers for child support, and children, when I have to stop saying children, adults, you need to work things out with your heirs, with regards to your heirs. You work it out yourself. Okay? You're not going to allow the government to decide for these young ones and have them put somewhere else where they're getting into more problems. Women, please stop going for this. I did it and I regretted doing it, but I didn't get anything anyway. I just didn't bother for child support and all that. Don't do it. Find a way. Ask your divine guides to help you find a way. Because it's damaging to the children, because your heirs. Because a lot of the times they're put into situations that are not cool. They're just not a good environment for them. And it makes things worse. Because if you keep fighting and battling over them, it's going to look like if you are unstable. And that's what they do in the end. And they decide. And that's not because they care about the young ones. That's because they want to create another financial instrument that is ongoing, that they could keep their lifestyle, to have a golf club membership here, to be able to travel this place and that place. Meanwhile, you're too busy working to realize the scam. Or too busy fighting with each other to realize the scam. You need to come together and work together to figure it out. This is what this time is for, right? You need to start trusting between you so that you don't go under another jurisdiction. You need to learn your old ways, your tradition. You need to remember who you are. No one else is supposed to do that for you. And there's an article, you could also look up, and I'm going to look it up and read it, right? Maybe that was a time when they used it. I don't know if it's still being used now with the FEMA document, like I said, that everybody should try and get copy and read that. Create your own communities, work together, go back to the community where the village raises your precious ones. I want to say children because it's all a spell again. Your precious ones, your next 7 generation beings. You need to come together and do this. Like, we got to stop looking at it like it has nothing to do with you. The incident with that young boy that passed, and then now again with the woman that passed and leaving 2 children. Do you see the pattern? It's not right. It's not in alignment with what this new earth is going to be. So I hope We are taking this as an educational, uplifting moment to make the change and feeling that it is you. You will have to look in the mirror and say, that is me. That is me. You know, those are my young ones. Those are my precious next generation beings. So I have to get involved. You know, we have to stop looking like it has nothing to do with us. It has everything to do with us. Everything to do with us. We stood by and let strangers, foreigners, decide who we are. How could somebody tell me who I am? Nobody can tell me who I am, except for the source that you came from. You don't even know your power. You don't even know how far you come, how long you've been here. You got to start remembering, asking for the memory to come back, asking for that divine light to touch you so that you can see for yourself and know within your heart, because it's a heart, this is a heart thing right now. It has nothing to do with what your skin look like. It's a heart thing. So those people who are still coming to the Caribbean to look for some precious gem, and that could go in many meanings, because I mean, St. Vincent and the Grenadines is called the gem of the Caribbean for a reason. And you know, the recent volcanic eruptions, there are debris and stuff that came down that has precious gems within it, and these people know about it. They come with their preaching, you know, like the Mormons or whatever, and telling our people that they're basically have no rights, or telling them that they're like less than, and they need their savior. They need to be saved by something. We have to stop that. We have to stop it. We have to stop encouraging it. Go and read the ancestral lands. You have to go back. In order to stop it, you have to go back to your ancestral traditions of handling situations. Even the people that are claiming to be mentally ill, they said that about me because I was finding out the truth. They tried to force medicate me. They tried everything. Again, when you know who you are and you're living in the light, you are guided. You are guided through this whole time because you came for that purpose. You know who you are. You know your potential. You know you are being held back. You know that. The person who this is reaching now, you know what I'm talking about. You know from your beginning of your life, something or somebody was holding you back because they knew that you knew. In this time, you are going to do and be who you are truly, to do and bring in, to do the right thing and bring in the new era. We're being targeted. We've been targeted. And some of us are more protected. I don't know why. Or maybe that's the contract the original contract that you agreed to, that there's a certain time and things that you're going to do while you're here. But in this time, many of you who are now waking up, you know when you hear what I'm saying, that you have things that you have to start doing to make things happen for the next 7 generation. I don't know why 7? Well, they claim the debt, you have 7 years. And now every 7 years they do in this system, they do cancel all debts. Because I remember when they first started to talk about all this stuff was like 2001, right? 9/11. And then 2008 or 2007, 2008, when you were seeing all these banks popping up, no more mom and pop shops. I was in Manhattan at the time doing a stage program at the YMCA, And I noticed all these things. You know, why was I noticing them? I was noticing them for a reason, right? So there's that. And then 2014, there's the letter from the Pope, right? That dissolved all that and send out notices for these people to be arrested, the corruption to stop, because his hands were forced. There was a letter to Obama at the time. And then again, 7 years after that. So, ladies and gentlemen, do you know why you're here? Do you know what you're meant to do in this time? Do you have gratitude to be here in this time? Are you willing to share? Or is it just for you? Now you have to make that decision. It's probably already made, because I know I'm speaking to people who have some idea, but not fully of what I'm talking about, and would like to go further. And then there's some people who are just waking up to the truth. So on the way, you will discover who you really are. And I say welcome to We Heal Nations. Let's do it. So if you want to be a part of We Heal Nations community, just look me up. I'm Vaughn, having another wonderful, blissful evening with you, my guest. Gratitude. Thank you, BayHillNews.net, for having me on again. And I give thanks to all those who are listening. And I'm wishing you a blissful night, peace and balance and love. Over and out. We'll see you next week.